Welcome to the Citizen Advisory Commission meeting. I'd like to call the meeting to order. The time is now 4:03. Madam Clerk, please take roll call.
Commissioner Burke?
Here.
Commissioner Moody?
Here.
Commissioner Savala?
Here.
Oh, there he is.
Chair Bruning, and we'll give Vice Chair
I'm here.
Claire a minute. And Vice Chair Auclair.
Just in the nick of time, I'm present. Thank you.
We will now hear public comments not pertaining to items on the agenda. Comments are limited to 3 minutes. The process will be the same for comments pertaining to each agenda item. Madam Clerk, do we have anyone who has a public comment?
We have one written public comment. It says, please consider electing Jan Burke as Citizen Advisory Commission Chairperson. She is well qualified as a longtime neighborhood resident who is active in the community and in touch with many residents the CAC represents. She currently serves as chairperson of the Wainimi HOA Coalition Group and is involved in the local business community as an owner-operator. Her experience and community connections make for an excellent chairperson candidate. Thank you, Mr. Jeffrey Scarberry. And that concludes public comment.
Thank you. Now we'll have installation of officers. The oath of office for newly appointed commissioner. I'd like to welcome our newly appointed commissioner, Mark Savala, and invite up the city clerk to administer the oath of office.
Raise your right hand and repeat after me. I state your name.
I, Mark Savala,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support and defend
that I will support and defend
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California
and the Constitution of the State of California
against all enemies,
foreign and domestic,
foreign and domestic,
that I will bear true faith and allegiance
to the Constitution of the United States
to the Constitution of the United States
and to the Constitution of the State of California,
and to the Constitution of the State of California,
that I take this obligation freely
that I take this obligation freely
without any mental reservations
without any mental reservations
or purpose of evasion,
and I will
well and faithfully
discharge the duties
upon which I am about to enter.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
Commissioner Savala, would you like to say a few words?
Very few. Sure. I'll just a little short history. My name's Mark Savala. I was born and raised in Illinois. Went to school there. Initially went to college and ran out of money, so I joined the Air Force. About 14 months in Vietnam. When I got out of the Air Force, finished college at Western Illinois University. Applied for a job with the Los Angeles Police Department. Came out here in 1972. Worked 33 years with them, and I'm happily married. I live in Port Hueneme. I've been here since 2006. When I retired, I had a house up here, a little house, and I have a daughter in San Diego. She's a district attorney. I have a daughter in Bend, Oregon, and she's working on her master's as a teacher. And I've got 4 grandchildren, and I'm happily married. And I love Port Hueneme. So,
Okay, now I will turn it over to the clerk for this next item.
We are going to open nominations for the election of chair. Do I have any nominations?
I would like to nominate Stephen Auclair.
Do I have any other nominations? Okay, hearing none, I will proceed with a roll call vote for the nomination of Stephen Auclair for chair. Commissioner Burke? Aye. Commissioner Moody?
Aye.
Commissioner Savala?
Aye.
Chair Bruning?
Aye.
Mr. Auclair?
I abstain.
Abstain. Okay. Motion passes with Mr. Auclair abstaining. Welcome and congratulations, Chair Auclair, and you
Thank
may
you.
now conduct the.
Oh. Yay, thank you. I have a, oh, okay. So I now declare the next thing we're going to be doing is conducting the election of a vice chair. The position of the vice chair is vacant. The floor is now open for nominations for vice chair of this commission. Are there any nominations from a commissioner?
Yeah, I nominate John Burke.
Okay, there's one nomination. Are there any other nominations? Any other nominations? Clerk, if you'd like to call the roll.
Okay.
Thank you.
We will go with Commissioner Moody. Commissioner Savala. Commissioner Bruning.
Aye.
We'll say Auclair.
Aye.
And Ms. Burke.
I too will abstain.
Okay.
Thank you.
Motion passes with Vice Chair Burke abstaining.
Thank you and congratulations. This is going to be a good year. So we're now going to move to the next item, which is the consent calendar. These items are considered together as one unless a member wishes to discuss it. May I entertain a motion and a second to approve the consent calendar? It contains the minutes from our last meeting. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to accept it.
Okay, there is a motion. Is there a second?
A second?
There is a second. Are there any opposed to the motion? Oh, all in favor? Say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none, the consent calendar is agreed to and the minutes are adopted. We're now going to move to business item number 2, which is a business item. And that is the update regarding the Heroes, History, and Heritage Policy nomination, which is the Richard Bard Monument. Will staff please present the report?
Good afternoon, and congratulations to Chair Auclair and Vice Chair Burke. As many of you will recall, the Commission reviewed Oxnard Harbor District's application for a Bard Monument at its November 13th, 2023 meeting. The item is included on today's agenda in order to provide an update. Since that review happened, no action is requested from the Commission this afternoon. After the Commission's review, the item was discussed at a City-Port Joint Committee meeting, and the Port indicated their intent to develop a survey to receive public input about the location of the proposed monument. A draft survey, which was included in your agenda packet, was presented to the City Council on March 18th and reviewed at that time. The Council supported the use of the survey, but made specific requests for amendments to the draft survey that had been prepared. Specifically, the changes that were requested included ensuring the location options on the survey are properly described, that a map which identifies the geographic locations is included, and a statement indicating that the survey was intended for Port Hueneme residents also be included on the survey. I am recently advised that the survey that the Port had developed is on hold, and that the Oxnard Harbor District will be meeting to consider an alternate location to the one that was initially presented to this body. As you may have noticed in the audience, Miguel Rodriguez, a representative from the Oxnard Harbor District, is here. Again, this was intended as an update since this body reviewed the item, and it did go to council. An additional review and consideration and direction was provided by council. No action has been requested. If there are questions for staff or for Mr. Rodriguez, we'd be happy to respond.
Thank you very much. Does the commission have any questions for staff? This is only questions at the time At this time, rather, comments and discussion will be heard later after public comment. Are there any questions, clarifying questions, though, of staff?
Just a clarifying question. So
If you can turn on your mic.
it is.
Oh, okay.
So if I heard you right, the original proposed location is going to be not considered, and they're going to consider other locations. Is that correct? Did I hear that right?
I'll give a quick answer, and then Miguel can
Okay, thank you.
provide clarity if I don't state it right. I think that the commissioners are going to meet and consider an alternative location other than the one that was presented. I don't know that any firm decision has been made to officially omit anything, but there is interest in considering alternate locations.
Any other clarifying questions of staff from the commissioners? Okay, we're now going to move to public comment. Are there any public comments from the applicants or others on this item?
No public comments.
Okay, with that, are there any comments from the commissioners on this item? Or discussion? Well, I do want to thank the port and the city for working on this item. I know it's been a long, I think a couple of years that they've been working on this, going back and forth. And so, while in some ways they're having to go back to the drawing board on exactly where it's placed, I appreciate that. Hopefully, there's collaboration between the port and the city, and they're going to find a location for this statue. And I look forward to an update in the future. Commissioners, any other comments? Okay. Oh, go ahead, Commissioner Moody.
For the survey, is it going to be only Port Hueneme residents, or is it Oxnard residents also?
Commissioner Moody, to answer your question, right now the survey will be placed on hold. However, based on the recommendations from City Council at the council meeting, there was a stipulation that the survey include text or language to differentiate residents from Hueneme from other residents. So, but as of right now, there's no movement on the survey whatsoever.
Okay,
It's on hold.
thank you, sir.
I too just want to say thank you for reevaluating the situation and trying to look for the best possible solution here, because I don't think we know that statues right now is not necessarily a really popular topic from society, but we appreciate Mr. Bard's contribution to our city, and we do want to acknowledge that, and we just want to find the right home for him. Thank you.
Any other comments from any of the commissioners? Okay, this item is a receive and file, and it's on the update, it's an update on the status of the application of the Bard Monument. Is there a motion, now since we've received the update, to receive and file this report?
I'll make a motion.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded. Are there any, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? Hearing none, the motion passes and is agreed to, and the item is received and filed. Thank you to staff. We're now going to move to business item. It's the next business item, which is the to review the city's legislative platform. Will staff please present the report on this item?
Okay, so the next business item, as the chair indicated, is an opportunity to review the city's legislative platform. A legislative platform allows for a prompt response by the city to proposed legislation at the county, state, or federal levels. Also provides clarity regarding the city's position on various forms of legislation, and allows for either the mayor pro tem or city manager to issue a letter of support or opposition based on that position. The commission reviewed the city's proposed legislative platform back in October of 2022 when the platform was initially put together. The document was reviewed by the commission and forwarded to council. They reviewed it on December 19th, 2022 and January 17th, 2023, and was ultimately approved at the subsequent council meeting on February 6th of 2023. The version presented to CAC was amended through that council review process, and I wanted to let the commission know specifically how it was amended from when it was presented to the commission. So it's included in the staff report, but I'll just read it for those who may be watching the meeting or listening. First, the section 1(2)(a), which referred to opposing legislation that would increase workmen's compensation benefits that would result in additional employer costs, was removed from the platform. Also removed was section 3(1)(f), which reads support legislation that would support reimbursement by federal government for costs associated with incarcerating deportable criminals. And then we had some additions. Section 7 is a new section to the platform entitled Mental Health, and it expresses the city's support for community-based mental health initiatives, outreach to those in need of mental health services, providing a continuum of mental health care for all, increasing funding and services for suicide awareness and prevention, and access to telehealth services. There was also language that enhanced the scope of support for legislation relating to veterans services, military spouses, and financial incentives for former and current service members. That was added to section 12 of the platform. And then lastly, section 13, entitled Law Enforcement, was added, and again as a new section, to express the city's advocacy for law enforcement related legislation in the following categories: social support, peer support and mental health, suicide prevention, training, familial support, and technology in the field of law enforcement. So those were the changes that were made and approved by the council after the commission had the opportunity to review that. It's prudent for any city to review and consider its legislative platform periodically, and that's why it is once again brought forward. Not necessarily that there are any required changes, but it's an opportunity for the commission to review, weigh in, and provide any advice to ensure that current or anticipated future needs within the community are accounted for in the legislative platform. So the item provides the opportunity for the commissioners and any interested members of the public to provide input on the document. Any recommended changes would be presented to council for final consideration. That concludes the staff presentation, available to answer any questions the commission may have.
Thank you to the staff for that presentation and preparing this report. Does the commission have any questions for staff? Only questions at this time.
I have one question. Given this started in 22 and 23, and just as a point of clarification, the current city manager, did he have any chance or opportunity to weigh in on some of these changes as the new leader of our organization here? Just curious, because this took place prior to his coming on board, so, and if he had any recommendations or changes that he would like to put forward.
Yeah, I did have a conversation with him, and you're absolutely correct in stating that both the original draft and the changes that were made by the council, both of those were prepared and approved prior to his arrival to the city. He did not have any recommended changes for the commission to consider. The one conversation we did have, there are certain things happening out in the ethos. Metropolitan Water District recently raised some rates, which will have a direct impact on our water users. So that may be things of that nature, just kind of the protection of our taxpayers, our residents, utility users, protection from unfunded mandates or pass-through costs from other agencies, things of that nature. But other than that, no specific requests or recommendations for the commission to consider.
Any other questions of staff on this item? We can enter into discussion after this. Okay, we're now going to move to public comments. Are there any public comments regarding this item?
No public comments.
Okay, there are no public comments on this item. The recommendation is to conduct a review of the legislative platform and consider the need consider the need for recommended changes to the city council's consideration. I'll now invite a discussion regarding any recommended changes to this item. Before we do that, commissioners, I recommend that we take maybe 2 or 3 minutes to review the document. I'm sure many of us have reviewed this before we came to the meeting, but I know it's a long document, so let's take maybe 3 minutes to just look through it and glance through and see if we have any questions. You don't have okay, so it should be
It's in the binder, yeah.
yeah, it should be tab 6, I believe. Yeah, so if you go to tab 6, it's a gray tab. Absolutely. So we're going to take just a few minutes to review this, and then we'll come back together, commissioners, and discuss. we're now going to be entering discussion on this item. Again, this is the consideration of the legislative platform, any recommendations we have, or general feedback for staff. We're not, of course, the final body on this. We're just providing feedback that eventually will go on to the council members. What feedback does the commission have, or discussion or recommendations?
I have one. I think overall this is well done. On the section public protection, section number 3, crime, F. It says support legislation that would enhance local control over public nuisances, including adult entertainment, problem alcohol establishments, and properties where illegal drugs are sold. And I'm just curious why we wouldn't just say included but not limited to. It seems like it's, I mean, first of all, we don't even have an alcohol establishment anymore. We don't even have a bar in our town. So it just seems kind of limited as far as what it is calling out specifically. So these are just examples and just one, it's just a little wordsmithing, that's all.
Okay, is there any other feedback? Commissioner Burke?
Well done.
Okay, any of the other commissioners?
Yeah. On page 15, Roman numeral number 10, and it speaks of the arts. And I just think it's kind of nebulous. And I know we talked about it as far as the beach festival and the funding and, you know, anything that's going to enhance the quality of life. And I would just think that as far as the arts and cultural resources and historic preservation, you know, that maybe could be fleshed out a little bit more. You know, and I'm okay with not having any bars, you know, in the city, you know, or anything like that. That doesn't bother me, but I mean, you know, what would be there could be a process for, you know, concerts and poetry readings, you know, or anything that would enhance the quality of life. And you know, yeah, I understand, you know, when you say support legislation, you know, but what specifically are we talking about? You know, it kind of just makes me think of when I'm teaching kids how to write an essay, and the whole thing is about fleshing out your points and stuff like that. And I just think that could be something that would be really great for the city, you know. And we did speak of the budget, how it wasn't paying for itself. I'm just kind of, you know, trying to remember off the top of my head, but those are, I would just think those are things that we would want to make sure that we're on point with as far as the quality of life for the city, you know, especially for the kids, you know, being a coach too. I know that, you know, and I'll just bring up one point, I'll be brief, you know, but with the use of the boys club, my kid's a basketball player, and you can't use the gym if you're under 18, you know. And I don't mind bringing him over there, but it's within walking distance of my house, and you know, and I feel comfortable having my kid, you know, go down there and be able to play pickup games and stuff like that. So I just think it's, you know, broad based, and I think that we could do a better job as far as, you know, we are talking arts, cultural resources, and historic preservation. The other point I'd like to make too is concerning it kind of dovetails with the statue of Mr. Bard, you know, and perhaps if there was more information that talked about, you know, I mean, I understand, you know, because I was part of the presentation when the gentleman was talking about that, but what about other people who don't really know exactly the ins and outs of everything he did, you know, to you know, bring the city to where it is today. To me, that's like historic preservation, you know, and I think that should be really fleshed out, you know, as far as the legislative process goes, right? You know, if we're gonna put money behind that to make sure that everybody knows what's going on, you know, within this, you know, especially the residents, and that's why I asked Mr. Miguel about the survey concerning if it was only going out to Wainimi residents or, you know, who is gonna have input, you know, because it says Oxnard Harbor District, right? So I know that they're all connected, right? You know, I don't know if that makes sense, but that's kind of what I'm thinking right now, you know, looking at this, you know, so, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Moody. So I've noted that you would like more specifics around the arts section of the platform, maybe a little bit more expansive.
Right. Well, just enhanced, you know, to know exactly where, you know, what the process is gonna be, you know.
Thank
I'm
you.
not going anywhere. I like living here.
Any other commissioners? Okay. Well, I have a few that I would like a few comments to make. I appreciate that the council and the proposal that went to council last time ultimately removed some of the items that I believe I actually made the motion on 2 of these to have them removed, including the opposition, or to remove the opposition to rather to oppose legislation that would increase worker compensation benefits. I stand by that. I think it was it's not great. It's not a good look as a city to say let's pay our staff as little as possible when it comes to worker compensation. And then the other item, which I was still shocked, was in that proposal, which had to do with reimbursement of incarcerating deportable criminals, as it says. In a community that has undocumented individuals, that's language we should not have in our platform, and I'm glad that it was removed. And hopefully we don't experience that again, where something having to do with the undocumented community and the city benefiting from deporting them is added. And so I appreciate that that was removed, and it's a sign in good faith, I hope, that the undocumented community can trust our city, that we're not just looking at profiting off deporting them or participating in their deportation. And so I appreciate those. I appreciate the other additions. For the other parts of the legislative platform, I do have a concern around item under general governance, so actually the first page, 2B, under workers' compensation. It says support legislation that would reform the workers' compensation process to incentivize employees returning to work, creating a disincentive for those that do not return to available modified duty in an alternative positions. I'm just concerned that there's some elements in the platform that are still kind of anti-worker, and I think that is anti-worker, anti-union worker and anti-worker. And so I believe the city should be supporting the wellness of our staff and not creating disincentives for them, especially if they're going through the workers' compensation process. That means that they've had an experience that they need to be supported through. And whether that's an injury on the job or something else, I'm concerned that the city would be supporting legislation that would be penalizing us staff at any time. Under labor relations, number 4B, excuse me, that's not the one, 4E is what I'm referring to. And that is oppose legislation that requires the use of city employees rather than giving the city the flexibility to determine the most effective means of providing a service, including contracting out. This item I'm also not totally comfortable with. It's kind of a well-known anti-collective bargaining, anti-labor, union labor platform to weaken the use of unionized labor and instead contract out those services. So in general, I would be opposed to 4E and 2B for similar reasons. I think we need to be pro-worker, support our staff, and oppose the elimination of our staff members. So with that, I don't know if my colleagues have comments on those 2 points.
On your 2 points?
Yes. to be in 4E.
So on the, it's not, I think it's how you interpret it. As a business owner, in the state of California,
Mhm,
workman's compensation is challenging, to say the least.
mhm.
Yeah.
And incentivizing people to come back to work is very important because the legal system is very, very difficult to navigate as a business owner. And I imagine it's probably the same with the city. So to incentivize people to get back to work and try to provide a better path forward for them, I think is an important topic to consider. I think that, to de-incentivize those who do not return to work, I think that that's how you interpret that. I think that if our incentives are to come back to work are fair, reasonable, and meaningful to the employee, then I think that's a really good cause to have. But to try to mitigate the legal aspect of people who try to not come back to work and just use the system is where I think is what the interpretation and the meaning is here. And I think that it's important that we realize and be cognizant of that fact, that having had to deal with, a lot of cases in my past, it's tough on a business, and I'm sure it's tough on the city too. So I don't necessarily agree 100% with your points. I do agree that it's important to incentivize people to come back to work.
Mhm.
And then on your second point, oppose legislation that requires city employees to have the flexibility to contract out, basically. We're a small city.
Mhm.
We can't hire all of the resources that we need. Sometimes we have special projects, sometimes we have special temporary work, sometimes we have special needs for specific tasks. And as a small city, we can't necessarily afford to hire full-time staff for some of the positions that we need. Again, as a business owner in a small company, medium-sized company, I, from time to time, do hire for specific projects, and I think it's reasonable to do so. And I think that, if we have the opportunity for a special master plan or a special project that the city council would like to see done, and the staff has to execute it, they may not have the resources.
Mhm.
And it's sort of like this event is a very good example of that. I mean, maybe the city decided to bring it back in-house, which is
Mhm.
terrific, to keep it local, to keep it a project that's run by the city. There may be times when they want to outsource some pieces of that. So I think we just need to find that balance, and I think that what I'd like to recommend is that we keep that in there because it we got to give the city some flexibility.
Mhm. On other commissioners on those 2 points? Would the commission entertain for number 2B to eliminate recommend the removal of creating a disincentive for those that do not return to work? That section. So focus on incentives rather than creating a disincentive.
Well, again, my question would be, how do you define disincentive?
Well, right now, if we adopt this as is, we're leaving it completely open.
Okay, well, that's a good
Um,
point, yeah.
That we would support the state passing legislation that could penalize employees in any way they see fit for going on workers' compensation.
Well, the city is very limited as to how they can disincentivize that, but could we eliminate that one phrase? I would be okay with that. I think that it's maybe understood that we try to work through those challenges and
Mhm.
try to make the best of them. So I'd be okay with that.
And I support with Jan.
So with that, are there any other comments on the platform? Okay, the feedback that I have heard, and then we'll go to staff, is around the crime item being more expansive on item F, which had to do with the type of areas that, it's just, so we all review kind of the feedback we've given to staff. If we reach consensus on this feedback, would be even stronger. Would be under public protection, under crime, item F, support legislation that would enhance local control over public nuisances, including adult entertainment facilities, problem alcohol establishments, and properties where illegal drugs are sold.
No, it would read including but not limited to
Okay,
items such as blah, 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 blah.
so adding not limited to. Do we have that
Trust the
noted?
judgment of the city to figure those things out.
Okay, is there a consensus on that recommendation?
I agree with Jen.
Okay, for under the arts section, Commissioner Moody had suggested that instead of, currently there is only one item under the arts, which is support legislation for continued state funding that recognizes the role of the role that local art activities and historic preservation have in community life. Just a recommendation that we're a little bit more expansive in that area and defer to staff on what that looks like.
I agree with Commissioner Moody's recommendation, and I think that, adding even just as simple as arts, culture, and historic preservation could help that. But, and I just looking to, because it's in the title, but it's not in the language of the topic. So
Right.
I think if we can flush that out a bit more, a little more robust, all-encompassing for arts, culture, and historic preservation.
Okay, is there any other?
Yeah, just maybe, what direction the city wants to go in, to specify that,
So
we know.
there's consensus around that feedback on that item?
Yeah.
Okay. And then the item I raised, which is under general governance, under workers' compensation, it's number 2B. And it would be to end number 2B at returning to work. So striking from creating a disincentive all the way to alternative positions. There's consensus on that. Any other items? Yes.
Section C. Thank you.
Let's all get
It
there.
says support legislation that provides local government the power to determine whether anti-opiate medication should be deployed in a given community.
I'm sorry. Can you refer to
This
the
is
reference
under
again?
drugs, public
Drugs, number
protection,
C.
drugs, and it's part C.
Page 9. 9. Yeah, it's on page
I'm
9
sorry.
at the top.
Page 9 of 16, top
Okay.
C.
Mm-hmm.
What does that mean? Why does the city trying to be doctors? I mean, I don't understand what it's trying to say.
I don't know if the city manager's office or staff can speak to that. I have a
I mean, we
I have
had
a
enough
theory that
we
what
had
that
enough
might be
problems
referenced.
with COVID.
Yeah, I have a theory of what that might be referring to, but if the city manager.
So it's not my area of expertise. When we put the legislative platform together, we did ask all departments to review and provide theirs. Given your background, you may be able to quickly correct my assumption here, but I'll throw one thing out. I know that this is under crime and drugs and law enforcement. When police officers come into contact with people that have overdosed, Narcan and other
Right.
drugs are sometimes administered to help bring them back. This speaks to the local power to administer certain drugs. So if that falls into the category of anti-opiate, perhaps it's referring to that.
Oh, I see. Okay, but those guys are trained.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, I got you. All right, so that makes sense to me now.
On that item, we should perhaps have a conversation around, do we think the city should be in favor in the expansion use of Narcan, for example, on this item? Or are we opposing, because this says that the city's, one second, support legislation provides
Yeah, this is,
that provides local, yeah, it's saying, hey.
it's saying they have the power to
Yeah, I mean-
determine whether to use it or not.
over excuse me, over and over again. I mean, essentially, this is coming from the leagues of city, is my assumption, right? And it's all about local control, local control, local control. Every one of these bullet points pretty much is the state is us saying, state, don't tell us what to do. We want local control. Now, when I see this, it's telling me, perhaps, do we view the opiate crisis in such a way that we're saying, hey, let's do all options on the table? Or are we going to say, hey, no, we want local control on the use of Narcan? And I'm not sure how the commission feels on that. I'd rather be part of a regional or statewide approach than say, hey, no, we want local control on how we save lives with Narcan.
Well, yeah, but it makes sense to have the experts tell us what's good, but CDC didn't do a hell of a good job, so. But I agree that, the city, if what the city manager said is accurate, and I'm sure it is, I mean, that makes sense, but for the city to decide what is medically good or bad for these opiate abusers, I mean,
And
they're not doctors.
to the conversation that the commission's having, I'll just add that there's nobody in the city that considers themselves a medical expert. Those decisions on whether to administer and use would be based on best practice, on medical journals, medical publications, and studies that suggest that it is or is not an effective tool. And you're right, Chair, it is really about local control, the city being able to research, gather data, and make those decisions rather than be told by another agency whether it should or should not use those.
I mean, in general, when it comes to this use, I would defer to the statewide agencies who are addressing the opiate use and things like the California Department of Public Health and others on how we can best deploy these life-saving measures. As the city manager's office mentioned, we don't necessarily have an expert on Narcan, and we would be referring to these same departments. So to say kind of, I don't want to make a mountain out of molehill here, but I'm just cautious around, especially public health, and saying, hey, actually somehow we will know more than statewide experts on Narcan.
Generally, the people that administer that stuff are trained, like medical
Right.
personnel,
They are.
ambulance people.
And largely because
Police
it's
officers that have this stuff are trained on it also, but it's usually for extreme emergencies.
right, and largely regulated by the state.
Correct.
Right. And so there was a movement to actually make Narcan available as broadly as possible. And so, for example, many schools in the country, or state rather, are now being supplied with Narcan. I know in some instances, municipalities are training things like individuals like front desk administrative assistants and others on both like the paddles on heart attacks
Right.
and Narcan, in case somebody shows up in your lobby who's overdosing. So we don't need to belabor this point, but that 2 point, since you brought it up, that was kind of my concern is, especially right now with the opiate crisis that our community is
Yeah,
facing.
I think it's
But-
fine, the way it's written.
Yeah,
It says
I
to
was-
support legislation that provides local government the power to determine whether an anti-opioid medication should be deployed in a given community and who has the authority to administer it. So I think that the wording is actually appropriate.
Well, I acknowledge that, yeah.
Yeah.
My concern is it sounds like it's positive, but it's actually about local control. It's saying we're not going to listen to necessarily defer to the experts at public health at the state or statewide strategies. It's saying we're going to provide that local government has the power, that we're going to decide, somebody here at the city hall is going to decide whether or not they follow best practices, whether or not they follow public health guidance. And I don't know if I'm comfortable saying that we're going to just oppose any kind of recommended guidance from the state. Again, I don't want to belabor
Well-
the point, but in general, that's where I see this contrast between local control and things like, hey, we need to save lives. Why are we saying, hey, stay out of our backyard, let us can decide whether or not and how we save lives?
The way I'm reading this is that they're wanting to be able to use an anti-opiate medication. Maybe it should be deployed in a given situation instead of community.
Yeah, because even where it says given community seems kind of problematic to me.
Right.
Oh, we're going to decide that
But
Wyoming Bay is not going to get
It
opiate.
should probably say, should be deployed in a given situation and who has the authority to administer it. I understand where they're going with this.
Yeah.
I have a medical background. So they're wanting to say, we want the power to administer one of these drugs if we need to. But when it says in a given community, that's a broad band. It should say in a given situation.
I'll second that.
Any other commissioners' comments on that?
Maybe we add some language in there with regards to the science, based on science-based, the most recent science-based knowledge and learnings that we can determine as the best practices. Just something simple like that.
Okay.
Including some, I mean, you have to use discretion, you have to use common sense, but using science as the navigational tool to get us where we need to be.
Yeah, scientific guidance, right? Okay, I think we're getting close to consensus on this item. Any other feedback? Okay, I just want to thank you, Commissioner, for bringing up this item, and it sounds like we've reached consensus on this, at least providing some feedback. There any other feedback on this platform? Okay, let me find my little cheat sheet here. Okay. Okay, so just in summary, of the recommended changes that we've reached consensus on, we're about to do a motion on all of them together, would be crime, having to do with the more expansive language, the arts section having more specifics, the item having to do with workers' compensation, removing and striking the section of the sentence having to do with creating a disincentive all the way through the remainder of that sentence. That's number 2B under general governance. And then under crime, under public protection, under section 2, which is drugs, striking the section of the sentence referring to a given community and instead say a given situation.
Right.
And then adding some language there having to do with following guidance, medical scientific guidance. Okay, is that clear for staff? Is there a motion to approve those recommendations?
I make a motion to approve those.
Okay. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, there is a second. Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that item is adopted. Excuse me, those recommendations are made to staff. Okay, now we are going to make a bit of an exception here. We are now going to briefly return to public comment. And just because we had overlooked an individual who wanted to speak on an item, and while we have already addressed item 5, which is the update on the Heroes, Heritage, and policy, I would like to just briefly give that an opportunity for the member of the public that wanted to address that item. As a reminder, we can't enter into a discussion because we've already handled that item, but if that individual wanted to come forward and give public comment, I believe they have 3 minutes. Thank you.
Won't take 3 minutes. But first of all, chairperson, members of the committee and staff, my name is Tom King. I'm a resident of Port Hueneme. Been here for over 20 years. My comment has to do, and I really want to appreciate what the chair has said, Mr. Moody has said, and what Committee Member Burke has said in regards to flushing out certain language about the monument and what the port is doing. And you've been wrestling with language. And so getting to the point, which is in flushing out a particular issue, myself and certainly people that I'm very familiar with have the highest regard for the Bard family, certainly the city, and people that are working with the city, and like yourselves, the committee, doing the hard work that a lot of people apparently don't see. So I'm sorry about that. But I wanted to speak because it has to do with the survey. The survey has been proposed, has been postponed, I guess, in regards to the language and some of the meat of the survey. What is concerning to me, and I wanted to bring it to the attention of the committee, so there's nothing to decide, but apparently Hueneme Wharf and the Flag Plaza is no longer that. According to the draft of the port that was published March 18, it's the Bard Wharf and Flag Plaza. Apparently, Bubbling Springs Park is not Bubbling Springs Park, but is, at least according to this draft, Richard Bard Bubbling Springs Park. Now, perhaps I missed the meeting where this was approved by the city, but it occurs to me that what I have here is a published document. It's a draft, but if we're going to parse out words and language, it's pretty biased. And if you were doing a survey where you wanted independent judgment, spirit of the community, I just would argue that this, in terms of appearances, seems biased to me. And I can tell you there's a concerted group that would be against the placement of this monument at the Flag Plaza. And I made about 3 minutes. But thank you for the opportunity to speak. Thank you.
Thank you for your public comment. And I know staff was taking some notes there, and we appreciate your public comment. Thank you. So we're now going to move to staff comments. This is an opportunity for the staff to provide any comments or reminders that they have for the commissioners.
I only had one comment to make this afternoon. I don't know if anybody was able to attend, but since we last met, we did hold our Run for Your Heart 5K event down at the beach. That was an item that this commission had the opportunity to review the plan for and was ultimately approved. The special use permit was approved by the city council for that. And I just wanted to share, we had between 500 and 600 participants. We had a wellness fair with a dozen service providers providing various services to members of our community. And overall, it was generally a very successful event. So just wanted to thank you for your review and your input about that event. And in case you didn't get a chance, I just want to let everybody know that it was a great success, and we look forward to hosting another one. And as a reminder, that was through the Community Benefit Fund and was in partnership with the Oxnard Harbor District. So we look forward to more partnerships with community benefit funds in the future. Thank you.
Thank
I
you.
want to make a comment on that, if I may. That was, I got to watch it, and it was lovely, and I got to watch it from my home, and I saw all kinds of crazy outfits during the run, even tutus, which was really funny. But it was, I was surprised how many people showed up for that. That was a wildly successful event, so thank you for putting that on.
Thank you. Any other staff updates or reminders? Okay, we're now going to move to commissioner comments. This is the time for the commissioners to provide any general comments. We can't enter into discussion on specific items, but any general comments they have, as well, of course, you can always reach out to staff. Are there any commissioner comments?
Just a quick comment. I found out today that Grocery Outlet is opening next week. And they have a $1,000 grocery giveaway for people that sign up on Facebook. So I'm excited to finally have a grocery store in our backyard, and I hope everyone will go out and support a grocery outlet. It's such a wonderful thing to have something close by that we can all participate in, and it's a great step forward for our economic development for our city.
Any other commissioner comments? Commissioner Moody?
Yeah, if you're over by the high school and you're on C Street and you're driving down, take a look up at the tennis courts. We have a really cool banner from the port, working with Adam Vega, who's been supporting our Viking tennis down there. And it's just really cool. You know, the kids are really jazzed. You know, they've taken a real sense of pride. Mr. Vega came over to the school and did a presentation for both teams, and brought a bunch of swag, just like Mr. Miguel has on with the logo right there. Brought all the kids' hats, and you know, we took a lot of pictures and stuff, and it was had the administration there, and it was just really cool. And I feel good every time I drive down C Street and I see the banner. It says the Port of Hueneme supports Viking tennis, and I just think that's really cool, you know. And kudos to your organization, you know. And we are grateful, you know, on behalf of the kids. You know, they walk around with the beanies on and the hats on, you know, and they feel good, you know. So thanks very much for listening to me.
Thank you, Commissioner Moody. Any other comments from the commissioners? Okay, I just want to really appreciate staff putting this agenda together, all of our other work we've done in the last 6 months or so. The commission's been more active than it's ever been, and so this is, although another step in this kind of process for all of these items, I think it's a meaningful one. I know the city's also been improving, or rather expanding, its communications online, on its website, and that's a big deal. I know that takes staff time, and it's important, as well as I know we're kind of navigating uncertain times right now as far as state funding. We have State Proposition 1 that passed. That's going to have impacts in our city. The state budget deficit's going to have an impact in our city, and so that's a very unknown time for our staff to navigate what exactly our budget's going to look like. And so I just want to appreciate them and their wisdom as we navigate these kind of possibly difficult times that our city will be having. Hopefully not. We'll weather the storm. Finally, I just want to acknowledge, so our next meeting is in July, so I just want to encourage everybody and to continue to attend our community events, both in the city of Hueneme and in Oxnard and countywide. In June, we will have the Juneteenth Festival in downtown Oxnard. There will also be Oxnard Pride, and that's going to be wonderful. That, of course, includes Port Hueneme. It's our LGBTQ+ Pride event in June. And so I really encourage everyone to participate in those and any other community events that we have coming up. With that, our next regular meeting of the Citizen Advisory Commission is Monday, July 8th at 4 p.m. And with that, the meeting is now adjourned. The time is 5:09. Thank you, everyone, and thank you to the commissioners and the members of the public that are here, and of course, thank you to our fabulous staff. Thank you so much.